3 inspection mistakes. That's all it took for one couple to turn a $140,000 retirement dream into a $38,000 loss in 18 months. And the worst part? Every single warning sign was visible before they signed. I spoke to that couple last year. They'd done everything right on paper. They researched for months. They visited 3 dealerships. They test drove a Winnebago Revel, looked seriously at the Heimer Grand Canyon S, and ultimately bought a new Airstream Interstate 24 GL. Beautiful van, thoughtfully spec'd, financed at what felt like a manageable monthly number. 18 months later, they sold it at a $38,000 loss because water intrusion had been silently destroying the subfloor since month 2. The moisture was there on the day they bought it. They just didn't know what to look for. This video is the walkthrough they needed before they walked into that dealership. We're covering exterior condition, roof integrity, mechanicals, electrics, and water systems. And I'm going to show you exactly what to look for, what dealers rely on you missing, and why some of these mistakes will cost you more than 12 months of the freedom you spent 40 years building. Stay through the electrical section. What I cover there is something almost no channel addresses, and it's where budget builds hide their most expensive lies. Section 1. Exterior. The van tells the truth before you open a single door. Before you touch a handle, before you look at the kitchen, before you ask a single question, stop 30 feet back and just look at the van. Take 30 seconds and do nothing else. Most buyers walk straight to the side door. That's not accidental. That's the choreography of every dealership floor. Get you inside, get you comfortable, get you emotionally invested. Because once you're picturing yourself parked somewhere beautiful, your brain starts protecting that decision. Everything you notice after that gets filtered through the lens of wanting it to work out. So we start outside, deliberately, without attachment. Run your eyes along the roofline from front to rear. Any dip, any subtle wave in the metal, any section that doesn't sit flush, that is not a manufacturing quirk. That is evidence of either a previous roof repair or a poor conversion cut. And here's why that matters more than almost anything else on this inspection. A compromised roof seal is the entry point for water, and water in a campervan doesn't announce itself. It saturates your insulation silently. It sits behind wall panels for months. It grows mold in cavities you will never see until the smell becomes impossible to ignore. And by that point, you're not repairing a seal, you're rebuilding an interior. Now examine every seam where the conversion meets the original body. On a well-executed build, a Storyteller Overland, an outside van conversion, a Volkswagen California, those joints are consistent, tight, and sealed with material that still has flexibility. On a rushed dealer conversion or a budget flip, you'll find gaps, mismatched sealant colors, and material that's already cracking at the edges. Cracking sealant on a 2-year-old van is a warning. Cracking sealant on a van being presented as new is a disqualifying condition. Walk away before your emotions overrule your judgment. Check the wheel arches and get low enough to look at the undercarriage if you physically can. Rust bubbling under paint at the arches is not cosmetic. It moves fast, especially on vans that have spent time in northern U.S. states, Canada, the U.K., or anywhere winter road salt is routine. A vehicle you're planning to live in or travel in for the next decade cannot have structural rust progressing underneath it. That's not a negotiating chip. That's a disqualifier. In about 2 minutes, I'm going to show you a 30-second test that costs less than $30 and reveals more about this van's true condition than anything the salesperson will tell you. But we have to talk about the roof first, because this is where that couple's $38,000 loss actually started. Section 2. Roof and water intrusion, the hidden damage that ends retirements early. I want you to permanently change how you think about water damage in a campervan. Stop treating it as a possibility you might encounter. Start treating it as the default assumption until a proper inspection proves otherwise. The reason is structural. Converting a factory-sealed vehicle requires cutting into it. Every fan installation, every roof vent, every skylight, every cable penetration through the body is a potential failure point, and the quality of those seals varies massively, not just between brands, but between individual vehicles from the same brand, built in the same facility, in the same quarter. Here's the test. Before your next dealership visit, buy a moisture meter. Under $30 on Amazon, arrives in 2 days. This is the tool I mentioned. Press it against the wall panels on both sides of every window seal. Press it against the ceiling near any roof penetration. Press it along the floor near the rear doors and the side entry. Water tracks in along those channels and sits under flooring where you'll never see it. A reading above 20% in a wood substrate indicates compromised material. Above 30%, you're dealing with active moisture damage that is already progressing. No dealer will volunteer this. No listing will disclose it. The moisture meter is the only way you find out before it's your problem. If you're considering a pop-top model, a Volkswagen California, a well house, a Ramo conversion, inspect the fabric seal around the perimeter of the roof mechanism with extra care. That material degrades under UV exposure and cold cycling. When it fails, you're looking at $800 to over $2,000 for replacement, depending on the manufacturer. Ask when it was last replaced. If they can't tell you, price that cost into your offer, because you'll be paying for it either way. The couple I mentioned at the start, the moisture reading on their van's rear floor panels would have been well over 30% on the day they purchased. They didn't have a meter. They didn't know what to look for. 18 months later, a mobile repair technician pulled up their flooring and found subfloor material that had essentially composted. That's what a $30 tool would have caught. Now we're going to the engine bay, and I'm going to share something about diesel camper vans that runs completely counter to what most buyers assume. Low mileage isn't always the safe choice. Sometimes it's actually the warning sign. Section 3. Mechanicals. Falling in love with the interior costs you the engine. You've seen the content, the van at the edge of something magnificent, the morning light, the calm. You've mentally moved in before you've looked at a single fluid level. That's what this industry is selling, and it works because it's genuinely appealing. But right now, we're going to the hood. Pull the oil dipstick, wipe it clean, reinsert it fully, pull it again. Honey to dark amber is normal and healthy. Black, gritty oil means maintenance has been neglected, and an engine neglected on oil changes has been neglected everywhere else too. Milky or frothy oil means coolant is mixing with engine oil. That is a head gasket failure occurring right now. That repair on a diesel engine runs 5 figures. That van does not leave the lot with you under any circumstances. Check the coolant reservoir. It should sit at the max line, and the fluid should be clear or tinted depending on type. Brown or rust-colored coolant means the cooling system hasn't been flushed in years. Neglected coolant leads to overheating. Overheating on a diesel is catastrophic and expensive in a way that is difficult to fully recover from. Now, the counterintuitive point. A diesel camper van used only for occasional leisure travel, weekends, one summer trip, or sitting on a dealer lot for an extended period can actually be in harder mechanical condition than a van that's been driven regularly at highway speeds. Diesel engines require sustained operation to perform their self-cleaning exhaust functions. Short trips and long periods of sitting cause the DPF, the diesel particulate filter, to accumulate soot it never fully clears. A clogged DPF is not a simple service item. Depending on severity, restoration runs $1,500 to $4,000. Ask directly when the DPF was last serviced or regenerated. A blank expression in response to that question is itself the answer. Low mileage on a diesel van that's been sitting largely unused is not automatically a feature. Sometimes it's a mechanical liability in disguise. Evaluate service history, not just the odometer. Buying a brand new camper van in 2026 is often a financially irrational decision. I'll be more specific. For most of the people watching this video, it is the wrong choice, and the industry will never tell you that. Here's the math with no softening. A new Airstream Interstate 24 GL lists near $230,000. A new Winnebago Revel is around $175,000. Finance either at current rates and drive off the lot, you've lost 15 to 25% of that value before you park at your first campsite. If you finance $160,000 today and try to sell in 24 months, you could lose the equivalent of 12 months of financial freedom, 12 months of the retirement you worked 40 years to reach. Gone, not because van life failed you, but because you paid peak price for a depreciation curve that was entirely predictable. A well-maintained 2-year-old build from a reputable converter with documented service records, verified water integrity, and a proven electrical system has already absorbed that steepest depreciation. You can see what failed and was fixed. You can see what held up under actual road conditions. A brand new van looks perfect because it has never been tested.
The 3 cases where buying new is financially rational. You require a manufacturer warranty as a condition of financing, you have a verified medical reason requiring a completely clean interior history, or you're targeting a model where used inventory is genuinely scarce and pricing has inverted. Outside those 3 categories, new is almost never the smarter financial decision. If you think I'm wrong, and some of you do, explain the math in the comments, not the feeling, the math. The electrical section is next. This is where I'm going to show you the 2-minute test that has pulled buyers back from the edge of 6-figure mistakes. It's also where the gap between a $60,000 conversion and a $160,000 conversion becomes immediately visible, if you know what you're looking at. Section 4, Electrics and Solar, where cheap conversions tell their most expensive lies. Open every cabinet that has wiring behind or near it. Before you look at what anything does, look at how it's installed. Quality wiring in a road-built vehicle is bundled, labeled, and secured at regular intervals with proper clips. It runs logical routes. It makes sense. When something fails, and in any electrical system something eventually does, you can trace it. You can fix it without tearing the van apart. Chaotic wiring is not an aesthetic problem. It is a diagnostic crisis waiting for a moment of maximum inconvenience, and it is a fire risk in a vehicle where you are sleeping. Ask for the electrical schematic. Any legitimate build, Airstream, Storyteller, Coachman Galeria, Heimer, will have documentation showing battery bank configuration, solar input, inverter sizing, and distribution layout. If a dealer or seller cannot produce that document, they cannot tell you what happens when the system fails at 11 p.m. at a remote site with no signal. The absence of documentation is information. It tells you the build was not engineered to be understood or serviced. Now run the systems live. Refrigerator on for 10 minutes. Check temperature pull down. A compressor fridge that's slow to cool is drawing excess power on every trip, shortening your real-world battery range. Turn on the heating system. On quality builds, you'll find a Webasto or S-Bar diesel heater. On budget builds, increasingly, Chinese-manufactured diesel units. Both can operate adequately, but the Webasto's service network across North America and Europe is extensive and established. The service network for an off-brand Chinese unit is online forums, waiting 3 weeks for parts, and hoping. Know which one you have and where you plan to be when it fails, because it will eventually fail. Battery chemistry is not a minor specification. It is the foundation of everything the electrical system promises you. Lithium iron phosphate, LiFePO4, delivers near 100% usable capacity, charges in a fraction of the time AGM requires, handles temperature cycling better, and under regular use lasts 8 to 10 years. AGM delivers roughly 50% usable capacity, degrades faster under heat, and requires replacement every 3 to 5 years. The cost difference over a decade of van life favors lithium substantially. If a van is being sold to you in 2026 as a premium full-time capable build and it's equipped with AGM batteries, that is a manufacturer cost-cutting decision. It is not a technical equivalency, and it should not be framed as one. push back on that framing directly. A genuinely full-time capable system in 2026, 400 amp-hours of lithium minimum, 400 watts of solar minimum, a quality MPPT charge controller, a properly sized inverter. Anything less is a weekend system being sold with full-time language. Know the difference before you're off-grid and realize the difference yourself. Section 5. Water system, where showroom builds separate from road builds. Run the tap. Let it run for 2 full minutes. Smell it. A water system that's sat unused, even a new one on a dealership lot for 3 months, can develop bacterial buildup that produces a sulfur or stale odor. That is not a minor inconvenience you flush out over time. That is a system requiring full sanitization before it is safe for regular use. Know that before you close. Look under the sink at the actual plumbing connections. Push-fit fittings work in household applications. In a vehicle experiencing constant road vibration and thermal cycling through changing climates, they loosen over time. Quality road-specific builds use crimped or compression fittings on fresh water lines. It's a detail that separates a build engineered for motion from one engineered to photograph well. Ask about gray water capacity and access. In the US, dump infrastructure is manageable. In Europe, particularly wild camping or multi-day off-grid travel, a small gray tank fills faster than any sales brochure will acknowledge, and it becomes a daily logistical constraint that quietly degrades the experience you paid for. If hot water runs off diesel, turn it on and time it. Hot water within 3 to 5 minutes indicates a properly sized system. Slow response or lukewarm output means a failing heat exchanger or an undersized unit that becomes a real daily friction point the moment 2 people are traveling together. If the system runs on propane in Europe, verify the gas certification date. Expired certification is not just a safety issue, it is a potential insurance coverage void in the event of any incident involving the system. Section 6. Who should buy and who should wait? Honest version. Buy now if you've done at minimum 2 extended trips, 5 or more nights in a rented or borrowed campervan, and you already know you can live in that space without friction. Your budget includes a $3,000 to $5,000 contingency reserve beyond the purchase price. You've matched a specific build to a specific primary use case, and you're not trying to make one van be everything to everyone. Wait, seriously wait, if you're buying primarily because van life content made it look attainable and appealing, and you haven't yet tested whether the physical reality of it suits you. Your financing covers the purchase with little remaining. You're expecting this vehicle to resolve a dissatisfaction with your current life, rather than support a life you've already partially proven works. That second category describes more buyers than anyone in this industry will say out loud. I'm saying it. The campervan industry sells freedom. That's not a lie. This lifestyle delivers real freedom for people who approach it prepared. But the industry also profits from buyers who are emotionally engaged and analytically disengaged. Dealerships are not your advisors. Sales processes are not designed to protect you from a poor decision. They are designed to move inventory efficiently. The couple I mentioned at the start, $38,000 loss, 18 months, water intrusion visible on day 1, they weren't careless people. They were excited people who didn't have this walkthrough. The buyers who thrive long-term in this lifestyle share one consistent trait. They bought the right vehicle, not the most beautiful one. They inspected it properly. They priced the risk honestly. They went in with a contingency fund and realistic expectations about what van life actually requires day to day. A $30 moisture meter, an electrical schematic request, 30 seconds standing back from the van before you let yourself feel anything. That's the difference between a $140,000 adventure and a $38,000 lesson. Do the inspection, bring the meter, demand the schematic. Buy from knowledge, not from the version of yourself that already mentally moved in. You will not regret it. Here's where I want the debate. If you think buying new is the safer financial decision, I want you to explain the math in the comments, not the feeling, the math, not the peace of mind argument, the actual numbers. And if you've bought used and it went wrong, or bought new and it went right, tell me that too. I'm pinning the most honest comment either way. Let's find out what this community actually thinks.